Your great-grandfather barely makes it into America before they slam the door on Italians. Your dad goes to prison for killing somebody behind the wheel, and you decide that the best use of your time is leading ICE raids and arresting immigrants and becoming an expert in child detention. This is the career trajectory of Greg Bovino. Yes, the guy running Trump's mass deportation campaign has a father who killed a 26-year-old woman drunk driving and went to prison for it. His great-grandfather was an Italian-American immigrant who got his citizenship paperwork the exact same month in 1924 that Congress created the Border Patrol specifically to keep Italians like him out. And this week, Greg stood at a podium and said, not once but twice, for emphasis, that ICE agents are experts with children after they grabbed a 5-year-old from a running car and refused to leave him with the family member begging to take him.
That child is in the least restrictive setting possible. When I say that we're experts, both Border Patrol and ICE, in dealing with immigration cases that involve children, probably the most experienced anywhere in the United States by any domestic law enforcement agency, challenge any other law enforcement agency anywhere nationwide to show me the fantastic care that ICE and U.S. Border Patrol provide children.
And made the kindergartner knock on his own door to lure people out. I'm not even shocked anymore at this country using 5-year-olds as bait, while detention officers in Louisiana plead guilty to sexually abusing a detainee in a janitor closet. Multiple incidents, federal court up to 15 years, and the urgent national outrage from the administration is around protesters. Give me a break. And real quick, I'm Lauren Preacher. Please take a moment to make sure you're subscribed. Every subscription is a middle finger to Katie Miller's whole operation. Me having more subscribers than her on my second YouTube channel in 6 months while she's bankrolled by billionaires who can't buy her real followers, subs, or friends. And if you're new here, this is a woman who voluntarily married Stephen Little Bitch Miller on purpose, and now she's building a podcast on the backs of detained children. The least we can do is maintain our lead out of spite. Subscribe, turn notifications on, hype this video. So Greg is 55 years old, Border Patrol chief, Trump's commander at large, a title that they invented specifically for this deportation campaign. He answers directly to Kristi Noem, the woman who bragged about shooting her puppy, and now he's spending his final years in the federal service traveling the country to lead ICE raids. Chicago, Sacramento, Charlotte, New Orleans, now Minnesota, where things have gotten particularly ugly. 4 children from one small school district detained in recent weeks. A 5-year-old, a 10-year-old shipped to Texas by the end of the school day, 2 17-year-olds, one pulled by their car by armed masked agents with no parents present, and Greg's team has been circling the schools, following buses, driving onto school property, and when confronted about using kindergartners as bait, he doubled down. We are experts in dealing with children. Let me say that again. Experts in dealing with children, not because we want to be, but because we have to be. They've detained so many children now that expertise is part of their resume. And this is what MAGA folks have to say about it.
They asked her the question, do you think these protests are helping? Personally, I do not. I think it's demonic. But I understood the sentiment of what she said. She was trying to explain the 3.5% rule. And she was basically saying that, in political science jargon, she was basically saying that when you have 3.5% of the population protesting peacefully, and you're in nonviolent protest mode, it is very hard for that to go unnoticed. And it's very hard for that to be tucked back in. It just kind of sparks.
Like, what? What in the actual fuck is demonic about standing up for humans? You're on stage with your toned down stylist who lessened the Brittany Mahomes look and made it slightly more normal and less prom, and you think going to church excuses you from being a shit person? It may excuse you from taxes, but that's it. Standing on a church stage calling protesters demonic while defending child detention and custodial sexual abuse is bold. Historically speaking, this move has not aged well either. Not once. Churches justified slavery. They justified segregation, forced assimilation. And every time we look back and say, wow, that was a mistake. This is the last time. This is different. No, it never is. Labeling protesters as evil is just as convenient. And it's much easier to say than, yes, a woman was abused in federal custody, or yes, we detained a child and we were fine with it. Language does a lot of heavy lifting when the reality is just embarrassing. Then we have another MAGA star weighing in.
So for everyone who's mad about Alligator Alcatraz, let's also not forget that Obama was the one who built the cages at the border. The reason that you weren't seeing ICE agent raids all over the news back then is because sanctuary cities did not exist. Local law enforcement cooperated with federal law enforcement. They held criminals for ICE to pick up. They didn't release them. They didn't tell people that ICE were Trump's private army who was zip tying children. Also a lie. And guess what? ICE didn't have to wear masks. They wore street clothes.
Okay, this one caught me real off guard. Like, what in the meth is happening here? Jillian Michaels, the washed up fitness instructor, is giving immigration policy takes. The woman who yelled at people on treadmills is now an expert on border security. Make it make sense. And here's the secret nobody's talking about. The reason Trump picked Bovino isn't random. They didn't just grab any border patrol chief. They specifically chose the Italian immigrant's great-grandson. I too am a great-grandchild of an Italian-American immigrant. My great-grandfather came here through Ellis Island and worked on the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City. New York City, which is a city sustained by immigrant culture, working class origins, not much different from Mexicans and other newcomers who have been targeted lately by federal deportation efforts. Except unlike Bovino, who's a Napolitan-ass bitch, this is the culture I'm proud of and I'm going to fight for. Bovino grew up in Boone, North Carolina. Population 19,000. His great-grandfather spent 15 years in the United States before applying for citizenship. His great-grandfather filed those papers in April 1924. The same month, Border Patrol was established and Congress passed laws specifically to curtail Italian immigration. His ancestor got in right under the wire, right before people like him were labeled undesirable. And now, a century later, his great-grandson is the guy kicking families out using the same agency created to keep his family out to terrorize other immigrant families. They picked him specifically because of this. But wait, his origin story gets even weirder. He says his inspiration to become a Border Patrol agent came from when he was 11 years old. He watched the 1982 movie The Border, starring Jack Nicholson. Didn't like the agents and how they were portrayed as bad guys. That bothered him. So he decided to join up, presumably to be one of the good guys. Cut to 2026, he's making 5-year-olds knock on their own doors as bait, shipping 10-year-olds to detention centers alone in Texas, bragging about this experience, traumatizing children. Congratulations, buddy. You've become exactly what you hated in that movie.
Gonna be fine. Listen, you and I ever get involved in murder, you understand what I'm saying to you?
Makes sense. He's so up in everyone else's family shit because his own family history keeps delivering. Greg has been very vocal about arresting immigrants for DUIs, calls them part of the worst of the worst. Drunk driving, in his view, is serious criminal behavior. I would agree with that. Disqualifies you from deserving to stay in America. His own father went to prison after killing a 26-year-old woman in a drunk driving accident in their North Carolina town. The unfortunate accident occurred on June 6, 1981. Michael, his dad, owner of a thriving bar in town called the Liberty Club, left work so intoxicated that he smashed his car into Janie Mae Mitchell, a 26-year-old woman in the other vehicle. She was killed. The victim's family told the Daily Mail that she was driving into town with her husband that night when Greg's dad, a stranger in a car with several empty bottles of alcohol, smashed into them. They wanted someone so empty that he could stand there with a straight face and deny grace to families who have done less harm than his own. People who knew Greg growing up remember he was really into snakes. Shocker. Knew where to find the venomous ones. Weird detail, but somehow it all makes sense. The guy who spent his childhood hunting dangerous reptiles now hunts 5-year-olds and their families for a living. He studied natural resource conservation in college, got a bachelor's degree in it, then a master's in public administration. Now he treats human beings like invasive species that need extraction. In 2020, he became the chief border patrol sector in El Centro, California. Then Trump brought him back for round 2, created this new commander-at-large title specifically for the deportation campaign. At Friday's press conference, Greg tried to justify his expertise with children, pointed to 14 migrant children ICE recovered from cannabis farms in California last year. See, they're heroes. They saved trafficked children. Then he went full conspiracy theory, accused the Biden administration of losing 300,000 children to trafficking across the border. The number gets repeated constantly by Republicans, but it comes from a 2024 Department of Homeland Security report about which had about 291,000 immigrant children who hadn't received a notice to appear in court. Listen, no more today than we ever knew before about how these immigrant children are being processed and tracked by government agencies. And there are real problems with this system. An internal Department of Homeland Security Inspector General report found that since 2019, over 291 accompanied migrant children were transferred to federal care and were not given formal court notices, which means authorities cannot reliably track their status or location. There's a difference between paperwork gaps and confirmed missing or trafficked children. The same report also found that more than 32,000 children received court notices but did not show up for their hearings. But experts have stressed that calling these kids missing without clear evidence is misleading. Being untracked doesn't automatically mean a child is in danger, but it does raise risk. The Inspector General noted that children who are not monitored through the system are considered at higher risk of exploitation, trafficking, or forced labor simply because there's no mechanism to verify their safety after release. There are documented cases of human and labor trafficking affecting immigrants, including minors, both at and inside the U.S. trafficking, including labor exploitation, and disproportionately this is affecting immigrant populations and is underreported, showing that a real issue that needs better solutions. Missing paperwork, not missing children. Experts have repeatedly said labeling these kids as lost or trafficked is completely misleading. So Greg's standing there fabricating a child trafficking case crisis to justify actually trafficking children, pulling them from cars, separating them from family members, shipping them across state lines to detention facilities as children. The projection would be funny if kindergartners weren't involved.
Do you have any moral or ethical qualms about detaining a 5-year-old on his way back from preschool?
You'll have to be more specific because I didn't detain a 5-year-old.
Motherfuckers! That's a little kid! Yeah, they got the kid. They got the kid.
And when asked about Liam Conejo Ramos, the 5-year-old his team used as bait, Greg had the audacity to claim that the media narrative was false. He insisted Liam remains with family and that as if any of that makes any of this acceptable. School officials witnessed the whole thing. Superintendent Zena Stednick saw agents pull Liam from running car and adult family members begged to take him. They saw agents refuse and marched the child to the door instead. All this while down south in a detention center in South Louisiana, ICE processing center pleaded guilty to sexually abusing a detainee under his authority. Guilty. Federal court, up to 15 years. Multiple incidents inside this facility with other detainees allegedly acting as lookouts. Not a gray area. Literally the example they use in the training video, do not do this. And before anyone reaches for the bad apple defense, please relax. Oversight reports, the DOJ investigations, and civil rights groups have been routinely documenting sexual abuse and coercion in immigration detention centers for years, especially privately run facilities. When you put people in cages, strip them of power, threaten them with deportation, and hand total control over to a bunch of guards with limited oversight, this isn't a pilot twist. Which brings us to fun plot twist number 2. Bovino promised ICE will continue to have a presence in Minneapolis and won't be deterred. They're going to keep surrounding schools, keep following buses, keep grabbing children, and they've got 2 more years of this guy before his mandatory retirement kicks in. And if this video has expanded your perspective, I'm Lauren Preitra. Make sure you're subscribed, turn those notifications on, hype this video. We need to maintain our lead on Katie Miller. Let me know what you want to see more of next, and subbing is free and takes all of us.